For a suspended Green Bay police officer is asking the court to dismiss the criminal charges against him. Matthew Knutson is accused of using his squad car to knock down a man running from a traffic stop. Brittany Schmidt joins us now in a newsroom to walk us through the motion recently filed. Brittany.
Mel, this is a case we have been following since April when the Brown County District Attorney's Office officially filed charges against Knutson. Those charges, Knutson's attorneys are now arguing, should be dismissed. This released body cam and dash cam footage shows Matthew Knutson driving his squad car into a grassy area outside an apartment building and hitting the man with his vehicle. The 13-year veteran with the department faces 2 charges, including negligent operation of a vehicle. In the motion recently filed, Knutson's attorneys argue, quote, the contact was unintentional, occurred at very slow speeds, and did not create a risk of death or great bodily harm, end quote. The other charge Knutson faces is misconduct in public office through fraudulent record. In the criminal complaint, authorities identify inaccuracies between Knutson's report and the video reviewed. In the motion, his attorney says Knutson provided a report to his superiors about the incident to the best of his memory, arguing officers cannot perfectly recall frame by frame what occurred every millisecond in a fast-moving situation and then convey it in a report without any inconsistencies.
Sometimes what we do in these situations is we set them for the day of the preliminary hearing. We address the motion to dismiss. If the matter is not dismissed, then we proceed with the preliminary hearing.
Knutson will be back in court on July 5th. Until then, his signature bond continues. The charges could carry a sentence of more than 4 years in prison if he's convicted. Bill?